Hello everyone, welcome to Sic Semper Tyrannis News. I'm your host, Mark Matheny. Today I just want to talk about a couple things. Right now, we still are hearing a lot of news about this Jeffrey Epstein nonsense, in my opinion. It is a bunch of nonsense, not that the case is nonsense, but the way they're handling it is the nonsense. I think that people, if you haven't seen my few last videos, and I was on the Awake Nation, I said the files are never going to be revealed. And I still believe that because of the nature of these files. It's not just a book, a list of people who are committing pedophilia. If you have done any investigation into this, obviously, we cannot find evidence like we would find with the 9/11 case or possibly even with the JFK case. This case is very secretive. And from what some investigators have uncovered, people like Whitney Webb and others have shown that this was a massive operation dealing with the United States, with Israel, and when I mean Israel in the United States, I mean the Mossad and the CIA, possibly MI6, and it involves obviously money laundering schemes of some sort, and obviously sex trafficking of some type, along with coercion, and blackmail, bribes, and things of this nature. And it's pretty complex, and there's a lot of people more than likely involved. We've heard from some of the news sources that, there's, and from Pam Bondi and them, there's tens of thousands of hours or something of this nature.
President Trump not happy getting a Jeffrey Epstein question at the White House today.
And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
On Monday, the DOJ released this video of Epstein's federal jail cell the night the disgraced financier died. But the time code jumps just before midnight. Attorney General Pam Bondi explaining.
And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing.
Together with the video, the DOJ issued an undated and unsigned memo confirming Epstein died by suicide and that he did not have a client list to traffic underage girls. The statement and the video triggering backlash from normally loyal Trump allies. Right-wing influencer Laura Loomer wants Bondi fired. Alex Jones saying no one is buying this. The DOJ is attempting to debunk conspiracy theories that have swirled since Epstein's death in 2019, spread in part by some administration officials, including now Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino.
That apparently 170 plus people on his client list may be outed in the coming days.
In February, Bondi was asked on Fox News about a possible client list.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
Bondi responding to that appearance today.
And my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well.
Helping fuel the backlash, Elon Musk. In June, he alleged President Trump was named in the Epstein files, later deleting the post. The president has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. Tonight, Musk hammering the administration, questioning how it can be trusted. For now, it seems an attempt to put the conspiracies to rest is having the opposite effect. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News.
A breaking news bombshell just dropping. A news report today that President Trump's name is among the many listed in the Jeffrey Epstein files. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Attorney General Pam Bondi told the president back in May that his name appears several times in documents her department reviewed. The Journal also reports that Bondi apparently chose not to release more Epstein documents because there's a lot of child pornography and they wanted to protect victims. Epstein was a convicted sex offender and trafficker who was found dead in his jail cell in August 2019 while waiting to go on trial on federal charges of sex trafficking minors.
And I would believe, in my personal opinion, it is not 10,000 hours of Jeffrey Epstein just molesting young girls. more than likely a list of people molesting young girls, and several things, in my opinion, going on, not just the molestation of women, let's say, or young girls, and abuse of them, and sexual exploitation, and so on, and trafficking. There is ingratiating and bribing and coercion and blackmail. It's a combination of those things. And so with the likelihood of people who were in high positions of power that were being brought to Jeffrey Epstein's island and to several different mansions and places wherever they were going to, and possibly some places that we haven't even heard of yet. And Les Wexner and others involved in this, lots of names. And now Trump and this organization, this administration, stating as they were coming in that they were going to release this information, and now basically kind of stonewalling it. But now, since the pressure has come out, now they're saying that they're having more talks and more investigation with Ghislaine Maxwell now, and closed meetings of some sort, interrogations or whatever you want to call them. My opinion is that we're still not going to see any real news about anything. And the reason I believe that is because if you think about it, so far the only two that they've implicated really with any type of charges and things was Ghislaine Maxwell herself and Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein is now gone. There is some speculation by some groups that he's still alive and it was a fake death and so on. But I'm not entertaining that today. We're just saying he's gone. Whether he committed suicide or was murdered, in my opinion, I believe he was murdered. But nevertheless, he's not here to talk. Ghislaine Maxwell is, and they gave her 20 years for this. And they're stating that there was a list of people, but yet none of them have been arrested. And yet Ghislaine Maxwell has been put in jail for 20 years for facilitating an imaginary list of some sort, an imaginary sex ring of some sort, let's say. So now Trump and them are entertaining the idea of possibly, or at least other people are entertaining the idea that she may be pardoned for cooperating. Here's my opinion on that, is I think that this might be what they're trying to do, is they're trying to close this case, but they know they really cannot implicate anyone. If you think about it, if they implicate one person or two people or three or four, even lower level people that they might feel they could throw to the wolves, like we go back and think about the 2007 and 8 crisis, the banking crisis, they threw Bernie Madoff under the bus, $50 million or so, and he took a fall. But that was probably more isolated because they could make a deal with him, and if anyone else was implicated, that they could cover it. But in this Epstein operation, we'll call it the Epstein operation, if one domino falls, it's like dominoes. It's a domino effect. If one falls, they're going to implicate several others, and the house of cards will come tumbling down. The dominoes will fall. So, they can't really implicate anyone or prosecute anyone in this case without the possibility of several people being implicated. And this is basically a cover-up. And this is a cover-up by the left and the right people. This is a cover-up by the Democrats and Republicans, in my opinion, because this vast network of corruption involves most likely both sides of the parties. And, other people, big people in the alphabet agencies, and things of this nature, and maybe other people who are not necessarily in the parties of the Congress, but businessmen, CEOs, and people in high political positions, think tank groups, or other things, all of these people would be then, implicated and would have to go to trial of some sort. So they're never, in my opinion, going to allow that to happen. So now, they're saying that she's given some grand jury testimony and she's going to come in and they're probably going to make a deal with her to say, just say it was all Jeffrey Epstein. And then, you and Jeffrey Epstein did this and that was it. And then they're going to close the case, in my opinion. So, I think with the Jeffrey Epstein case, that's what is going on there. And in the meantime, you have Trump and then, they passed this big, beautiful bill. It doesn't help the deficit, doesn't really do anything but add to that deficit. And so, again, this is where the left-right paradigm comes in, where we've talked about how there are certain policies, global and, even domestic, that never change regardless of who is in office. And one of the things is the deficit the debt ceiling continues to go up. They continue to do QE, quantitative easing. They continue to lower interest rates. They don't allow for the pain to set in to actually fix the overall problem that we have, because it's a debt-based system. But I believe what is going on is that they're looking for the way to transform the economic system now to the stable coins, to the crypto, to digital currencies. They're saying that they're not going to do central bank digital currency, but most experts in these fields who understand what these elites are doing, pushing this world governmental system, believe that the stable coin is being used in place of a CBDC currency, basically. So it's like pulling wool over your eyes, saying we're not going to create a central bank digital currency, but they're going to create the stable coin currency program that's going to basically act like a central bank digital currency instead. And they have to slowly whittle away fiat currency into digital currencies. And so this is why we're seeing, I believe, the volatility and possibly the tariffs that are being pushed and things of this nature.
Here's the thing, Lynette. The United States no longer needs a CBDC. It already has it. And it's about to be signed into law by the president, possibly today, and it's stable coins. And the bill is the Genius Act, guiding and establishing national innovation for U.S. stablecoins. And it is the first standalone crypto measure signed into law. I think stablecoins are literally the Trojan horse for a centralized, federally controlled digital currency that has all the trappings of a CBDC. What do you think?
I could not agree with you more, adding also the fact that who issues stable coins and why would stable coins be supported by this administration? But you're right. I mean, CBDCs were vilified, but this is a very easy way to make that happen without people realizing it.
You have to sort of zoom out and look at all these things and look at this this whole group. That's why we did this investigation. I pretty much researched myself out of a job. What was supposed to start as just a simple Tether, let's look into Tether, turned into, an 80,000 word investigation of like the early Bitcoin space and now the stablecoin issuers and the regulators and where we're going. And there's so much disgusting stuff all over this. I mean, the Gillibrand connections with NXIVM, both of her parents being involved in a Bronfman-led sex cult, extremely disturbing. And now she's writing the legislation, that regulates stablecoins. It heavily uses the Terra Luna FTX implosion, which you could argue, and I do, that these were controlled demolitions done to simulate a dialectic, basically. If we need to ban algorithmic stablecoins, they all say that everywhere. David Marcus, Thiel, the reserve guys, the legislators, like Gillibrand and Lummis, they specifically say we need to preserve the dual banking system. We can't have Bitcoin-backed money. We need to do treasuries. They're really building this, you look at this whole machine and they're building this, consent towards us all being super stoked about, this private stable coins and Bitcoin being held by the U.S. government. This is sort of where we are. And so if you look at it as sort of an intelligence play, these are currency speculators. That's what Epstein was. That's what Thiel was. What would they do? How would they fix our debt and move into this new system? They would probably do exactly what they did.
Well, one thing I want to bring up about, people like Gillibrand and Lummis is that they frame a lot, and especially Lummis, frames a lot of her crypto advocacy as necessary to ensure dollar hegemony, right? And so as I understand it, and a lot of, rhetoric I've heard in the Bitcoin space for years is that fiat is terrible. It's broken money. We need to move on from fiat. And so hearing things like that from Lummis, hearing Trump at the Bitcoin conference say, actually, the Bitcoin and the dollar are not competing. Bitcoin is going to strengthen the dollar and all of this stuff. I think it should be a harbinger for concern for people that don't want a debt-based monetary future. And unfortunately, it's essentially been admitted that, the next president, who we know now will be Trump, is going to face some sort of U.S. government debt crisis. And of course, that debt crisis is the consequence of wildly irresponsible fiscal policy, right? And so what I am concerned about is that there will be no accountability for that. There is a plan to use things that were meant, or at least pitched, as destroying fiat and the debt-based monetary system, will be used instead to usher in a newer version of it that, as Mark pointed out earlier, it will likely be deflationary, but only because they've stolen all of the assets and really most things of value. So at that point, they do want a deflationary system because they have hoarded all of the wealth, and they don't want their wealth to inflate away now that they hold almost all of the cards. Right. And so, what concerns me there then is the stable coin play, as we said it for, a long time. Stable coins have the potential to be just as programmable and surveillable as a CBDC could be. And the Fed and the national security community, meaning, the CIA, among other agencies, have been very open that stable coins will ensure dollar hegemony. But it shows that the intent is to globalize the dollar and essentially use dollar stable coins, not that aren't necessarily directly issued by the U.S. government, but will be regulated by it, to become, essentially a de facto world currency. That's essentially the push.
But it's also going to possibly result in a bigger war front with not only Russia, but possibly China. And then we see how China has been setting up massive ports around the world and buying lots of land and business in the United States. And we saw during the Biden administration the massive amounts of Chinese nationals coming into the United States. And then we've found instances of these a biolab in California and somewhere, and people being stopped bringing in some types of biological agents that could cause, deaths or severe problems here in the United States. So, as we are moving into this new generation of AI and things too, we see that we know that the AI revolution, in a sense, is going to displace massive amounts of jobs. And they are, people like Elon Musk and them are talking about universal basic incomes and carbon taxing. And then recently there was a city, I cannot remember which one it is, but I'll post it on here if I edit. There's a city that now has started this carbon taxing initiative here in the United States. We see more and more news accounts of these 15-minute cities that the World Economic Forum has been talking about. We have already heard from Bill Gates and these other big elites about artificial meat and how we need to reduce the consumption of meat and things of this nature. And this has been slowly happening. And in eating bugs and things of this nature. And of course, yes, there have been companies that have started alternate meat substitute programs using, and bread and things of this nature, using crickets and other insects like grasshoppers and things of this nature, and larvae from worms and things. So we are seeing this implementation of what is called the 2030 program, Agenda 2030. We're seeing that being slowly implemented through several initiatives. Now, at the same time, there are some pushes in different manners that we could look at with, like the Big Beautiful Bill. It did do a lot to shut down a lot of the green programs. And during this administration, there has been a lot of pro-Second Amendment legislation through the Supreme Court that has trickled down to some of the states and things. There has been the reinstatement by like the DOJ to take cases where people have had their rights taken away federally to carry a firearm, and now they are taking those cases in the DOJ, and in 9 or 10 cases so far, they have reinstated people's rights to carry firearms. These have been high-profile people so far, and I believe with nonviolent crimes, but you are seeing some fronts. And I said this in the beginning of the Trump administration, when he got into office this second term. I said, you're going to see some good things and you're going to see some bad things. The bad side that we have seen is how Silicon Valley and these technocrats have taken over. Palantir, OpenAI, Oracle, and the men under Peter Thiel, like Sam Altman and Max Karp and J.D. Vance, even Howard Lutnick and others, and even Elon Musk, and this PayPal mafia crew moving in and capturing a lot of contracts that basically control our national defense and our banking and other avenues of our legislative, judicial, and executive branch too, because through Doge and these other programs, they wanted to utilize AI to kind of run the programs for Congress and these other branches of government and things. So this is what we're seeing. So in my opinion, you also, on the other hand, see the media. A friend of mine and I were talking about this, how when, if you go back quite a few years, you had Glenn Beck and Tucker Carlson and all of them on mainstream news, telling you what was going on, Bill O'Reilly and all of them. And then, all of a sudden, Glenn Beck, supposedly, he comes out, remember, and he said, I'm going to tell you all about the FEMA camps, and tonight at 5 o'clock, and I try to debunk them, and I can't debunk them. And then at 5 o'clock, when the Fox News comes on, it's nothing. It's a nothing burger. He doesn't say anything. And then he, basically, they say he gets fired, basically, or he has to leave the broadcast, and then he starts up his own alternative news network. Same with Tucker Carlson, same with Bill O'Reilly, and even people on the left. It has happened. So what's happening is they know that the alternative news has become the news, and so they have to make it look like these men are in the alternative news media. So Tucker Carlson, Glenn Beck, and them kind of have a couple conversations with Alex Jones and them to make it look like, now we're part of this underground alternative network giving you the truth. And so in order to give credibility to Alex Jones and them, they had to do the same thing. They had to make it look like he was being persecuted. So remember, maybe during and right after the COVID, they basically banned Alex Jones off of all these networks, social media sites, and so on. And then they came with this Sandy Hook trial, which seemed to be just overboard. And so, in my opinion, I think they did this too to give more exposure to Alex Jones, more credibility, and to make it look like he is, this persecuted guy that, they're trying to get. Meanwhile, his studios are growing. He looks like he's getting younger now and and in great shape and things. And so it doesn't. It just seems like he is another compromised person, along with Glenn Beck and Tucker Carlson and all these other guys. And most of the conservative side of these alternative news media, they're all on YouTube, and they're basically just there to give you this basically nonsense, this mainstream conservative type of gender inequality stuff, and we're going to argue about gender and abortion and some of these things to make you feel like you're fighting the man or fighting this government system. But in the meantime, we're still being slowly pushed into this system of world government. These wars have not stopped that Trump talked about stopping within 24 hours. They're ramping them up, actually. They're giving all this money towards them. A lot of the European countries are gearing up for a more massive war, and in the meantime, they're hitting all of these different countries. Some of these countries that don't normally even have tariffs, they're hitting them with tariffs, causing the United States citizen to basically pay these tariff fees, because these other countries and companies are not going to pay these fees. They're just going to pass it on to you, basically. So you're being taxed in a way, even though, Trump and them say, oh, look, we're going to take away taxes on overtime. We're going to take away taxes on the, tips for waitresses and so on, or waiters. But it's being transferred into inflation and massive debt and massive deficits, basically. So I think that my opinion is this slow transformation to push digital currencies. In the meantime, then they set up a crypto reserve, and they're pushing the blockchain, stablecoin things, and lots of governments are buying into crypto. China and all these other companies buying crypto, Bitcoin, and so on. So that's what's happening right now. And again, I just don't think that anything is going to come of the Epstein case, because they can't afford to do that. If you hadn't gotten information from the JFK files yet, what makes you think you're going to get any information from the Epstein files when there could be hundreds or more of big people that would be implicated that would go to prison? It would upset the economy. It would upset Wall Street. It would upset. It would be a national security threat, and more than likely it is. And so this is my opinion as to why you're never going to get that. But they're going to continue to push this idea and keep pushing, we're going to release information. All these people have information and this and that, because it's good entertainment. It gets good ratings, and it's going to just prolong this until it kind of goes away, in my opinion. And we'll see what happens with Ghislaine Maxwell. And this, again, still begs the question, what part, if any, did Trump have with this whole Epstein operation, even if just a victim of it, in a sense, along with a lot of these other people? We cannot discount that. And I know a lot of people may not like that because they may support Trump. I have to look at this. I support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against enemies foreign and domestic. And we want to maintain our national sovereignty. It doesn't mean we hate other countries. It doesn't mean that we can't work with other countries. But we have to be aware that these other countries, these elites, these transnational elites who are not allegiant to any country, want to slowly pull away our wealth from the lower class and middle class to the upper echelons, and this is what's happening through the AI and the consolidation of all these companies into bigger mega companies, and through the AI and things. They're setting up the surveillance, they're setting up the national data centers to run all of this AI that's going to take massive amounts of electricity, amounts of energy, and so and at the same time conditioning us, I think, through the border crisis that they create through the left-right paradigm, one opening the border and then closing the border, bringing people in, pushing people out, and things of this nature. They do this to again have this left-right polarity to keep people fighting, whether you're a Democrat or Republican and things, instead of looking at the bigger picture and saying, hey, we have corruption here. They did the same thing with the shootings with police and BLM, with the Tea Party, and with the Occupy Wall Street and things of this nature. They always get it to set it up to be a left-right paradigm scenario, a problem, reaction, solution scenario, and to keep people divided. A house divided against itself cannot stand. And so this is our real problem. Do I think there are solutions to it? There are probably some temporary offsets and things that we can do to prolong this, but I think that it's more of an autonomous thing now that's going to take place. There will be some form of a world government system, where it's a dystopian type system, possibly war soon, because maybe these elites also think that out of the order out of chaos, the order ab chaos, could be their way of bringing in the new system, just like they did with World War I and II, bringing in the League of Nations and then the United Nations and so on. And so these are just some thoughts I had today that I wanted to give an update on. So be aware of that. And right now, too, Russia and China are building their relationships with Afghanistan and the Taliban there in order to, build up the Belt and Roads Initiative. We talked about the BRICS, and we've also talked about CRINC, which is, a newer acronym for, you've got Korea, North Korea, you got China, Russia, and I believe it's India or Iran, and they're consolidating too. And so what's happening is, if you listen to Peter Schiff, basically these countries are buying less and less of the dollar. So this is what the U.S. needs, is for them to buy our debt, to buy our dollar, and less of them are doing it. And so it's going to cause problems for the United States, but maybe this is part of that transformation process that these elites want to drag us into a digital currency. And so with that, there's just some thoughts I have, people. I hope you're having a good weekend. I will do some more reports maybe tonight or tomorrow and during the week. So until that time, take care of yourselves and remember to protect your own rights, because if you don't, no one else will. And as always, thank you for watching.